Well, our recording just started. I'd like to welcome everyone to our 2021-22 virtual learning option for grades 6 through 8 offered through Graduation Alliance. Before I start, I'd like to recognize the support of our school board, President Dr. Marty Schaefer, Vice President Alyssa Anderson Pearson, board members Carol Jacobs, Anthony Velez, and Paul Wakeman, and also our superintendent, Mr. Ron Banner, for their support of this program. Our agenda today, first our purpose. We are looking forward to offering a return to full 5 days of in-person learning this fall. We also recognize from our spring virtual survey that families are interested in a virtual option during this time of COVID. Tonight, we are presenting our 6th through 8th grade middle school option offered through Graduation Alliance, GA. I'd like to introduce our presenters today. My name is Kevin Ikeda. I'm the Clover Park Assistant Superintendent. We have Leanna Alric, our Clover Park Director of Community Relations, who's running the website. Tracy Newman, Office of Secondary Education, who will be managing our chat room along with Jesus. Beth Banham, our Graduation Alliance Vice President of Program Development. Mr. Todd Dahlstad, Graduation Alliance Senior Program Manager. Jesus Zavala, Aubrey Lane, and Lisa Hathaway, who are also support staff from Graduation Alliance. This is a webinar format, so only the presenters will be visible. As you develop questions, we ask that you put them in the chat. We'll answer the questions in the chat at the end of this presentation. If you are Spanish speaking, Jesus will be able to translate the questions for us. Jesus, can you translate that right now?
A todas las personas que hablan español, por favor, de ingresar sus preguntas en el chat. De esa manera, por favor, escríbalas y al final contestaremos todas sus preguntas.
Thank you. This presentation will be recorded and will be posted on our district website. Our presentation is scheduled for an hour, and we hope that this, as you go through this, there will be some information related to high school. So please make that differentiation. A couple calendar announcements. We'll have our virtual Spanish presentation actually for 6/12 on August 18th at 7 p.m. Jesus?
La presentación para el programa en español para las personas que no hablan inglés y necesitan ayuda. La junta o la presentación virtual se pospondrá para el día 18 de agosto a las 7 de la noche.
So if you are Spanish speaking, we do welcome you to stay and hear this presentation also. We will have a virtual high school presentation on August 18th at 6 p.m. And then if you also have kids in K-5, we will have a K-5 presentation to be determined because that will be offered by a different provider, Pearson. So with that, I'd like to turn this over to Beth.
Good evening, everybody. I'm not sure you can see me yet, but if you can, thank you for joining us tonight. I myself am a parent of an elementary student, so I've done many of these webinars, and I understand that this is dinner time for many of you. So thank you for juggling and do what you need to do to make it possible for your family to get the information you need. If you have follow-up questions, we'll definitely be able to put together an FAQ sheet that you can reference after the call tonight. As Kevin mentioned, my name is Beth Bannon. I'm with Graduation Alliance, and I'm the Vice President of Development there. We have been working with Clover Park for a number of years, serving students in many different capacities, everything from summer school to different full-time programs that we have throughout the district. So some of your students may actually be familiar with our programs. However, this is new, and just like anything else in our world right now, the only thing that is certain is what is uncertain about the year. So as many of you are considering or have already decided to utilize a virtual option for the year, I wanted to come on and be able to explain to you what that will look like and help manage expectations around what your student will experience and who it is that is working with your students in Clover Park. So I'm going to give you a little background today around Graduation Alliance. Go ahead, Leanne, next slide. I'm going to give you a little background today around Graduation Alliance. As I mentioned, we've been working with Clover Park for quite some time now. However, Graduation Alliance has been around for nearly 20 years. We have been a remote and virtual education company for that long. And so what's going on in the last year, now 2 years, is nothing new to us. We work with over 650 state and district partners nationwide, and that number is growing rapidly by the day. Many of those partnerships are 10 years or more longer. Currently, we have over 100,000 kids in alternative option schools right now, and that doesn't even count kids that are gen ed kids in virtual programs. Our mission is to advance student lives by empowering them to engage in whatever way is possible for them, and to give them the education and the skills they need to move forward in their educational careers or after education. We are a highly accredited organization for those of you that are concerned with that. So Cognia is the main accrediting educational entity, and we are Cognia accredited, Quality Matters, and ACE accredited. And ACE, I'll talk a little bit about, really applies more to high school, but it's a college credit partnership that we have. Lastly, we are NCAA certified, which means any students that are athletes or need that NCAA eligibility will have that in utilizing Graduation Alliance through Clover Park School District. So for your students, the first thing to know about this is that we are an experienced, highly recognized and highly regarded program. This is not something that has come out of nowhere. We've been doing this for 20 years. So hopefully that gives you peace of mind around the education that your students will be getting. Next slide, please. So on top of virtual learning, which again, I have young kids myself and who all participated in virtual learning last year, there are a number of services that we believe students in virtual environments need to be successful. That is something that we are specialists in. So not only do we have our own proprietary curriculum that we write and support, but we have a number of efforts to help students stay engaged and help support them through their learning, particularly as middle school parents. And again, I am one of them. We know that there's a lot of parent involvement that's been needed. And while you can't simply just walk away from your students from learning virtually, we are going to help lift that load off of you with all of our supports. So every student that participates in our program, and I'll go into these roles a little bit more in the future, have a number of additional supports. First of all of our classes, while asynchronous, which means there is not a seat time requirement, it means students don't have to log in at certain times. It's a highly flexible program. I'll get more into that later. All of our classes are taught by Washington State certified teachers, and all of our curriculum is state aligned to all the Washington State requirements, as well as aligned to Clover Park School District's requirements. So you can be certain that your student is receiving an equitable education through this program, okay? Outside of our teachers, there's also a number of supports that I think you'll find are really exciting for your students this year. One of those is what we call an academic coach, Jesus being one of our academic coaches. Our academic coaches, we like to lovingly call them the NAG. Their job is to support students in pace and progress. In other words, we help students move forward continually and successfully while in a virtual environment. That can be anything from scheduling to assigning courses to helping students get the tutoring or one-on-one support they need in classes. And I'll have Jesus talk a little bit about that as we get further on the slides. Next level of support that we have is what we call a local advocate. These are really special and unique people that work for our company, just like our coaches, and it's something unlike anything else out there. Those local advocates' jobs are strictly the social and emotional health of your children. So they are there to recognize any barriers that your child may have, whether that's environmental or social, and help remove those barriers. Everything from structure and accountability to life barriers, to scheduling, to things going on at home. Our advocates are there to support your children. Those advocates actually live and work in your local community and have been working with the Clover Park District again for a number of years. So they're familiar with the district, they're familiar with district resources, they're also familiar with community resources. So as your student is learning with us, we're watching and listening for cues and for things that might be standing in their way of being able to be successful in learning in a virtual environment. Those advocates then will work with both the district and the families to alleviate as many of those barriers as we can. Throughout this program, your students will also have access to 24/7 online tutoring, which means if you have a student who does tend to work a little bit differently and maybe needs to work in the evenings or on the weekends, and they run into any difficulties, they will have access for support. You do not need to do that. Now, of course, we always encourage family and parental support in these environments, but if you're unable, your student will always be able to get help. Those academic supports and social and emotional supports and teacher-led programs are all just part of the program that support your students in a virtual environment. As students move through their educational career, those supports grow into career discovery, college planning, all the things that you would hope your student would get. And so we'll start talking with your middle schoolers about what they're interested in and what they might like to pursue in high school, whether that be CTE pathways, industry certs, things like that. So your students are going to get all of these supports while they're going to school and learning through the Clover Park School District. I mentioned earlier that this, go ahead, next slide. I mentioned earlier that this is, that Graduation Alliance is a solution-led program that offers those 360-degree supports. Like I said, unlimited teacher-led courses. Our teachers teach the classes, and while it may not be a live seat time, meaning your student will not have to log in at a specific time to take a certain class, they will know their teachers and their teachers will know them. They will have access to contact their teachers via phone, text, and chat, as well as their coaches and their local advocates. Okay. We have transcript review. We manage learning plans for your students, registration process, again, the coaching, the tutoring, reporting for the district and for the parent. And at the very end, I'm going to show you what that portal looks like that your student's going to be working in. It is different than what you were used to last year. The reason I'm showing is because there'll be snapshots, whereas you as a parent will be able to see where your student is at, what their progress is. And anytime you can help support that pace and progress, we invite it, we encourage it, and we hope for it. On top of that, any student that needs it will be provided a 4G enabled Chromebook. What that means is it's a live hotspot, and anywhere a cell phone works, that laptop will work. And so we fully support that. If your student runs into a tech support issue or anything like that, there is an immediate link and a live person that can help them with those supports, okay? Besides all of those supports from Graduation Alliance, the district will have its own supports, and I'll let them tell you a little bit more about it. But as you're thinking about this, I want you to think about this program. It's designed for students who either cannot or will not attend traditional in-person school for the reasons that you feel are important. Obviously, COVID-19 concerns or complications. A virtual environment may just be a better environment for your student. Maybe you have some family complications or health issues in your family, or maybe you're needing to work different hours and your student needs to be home. Maybe there's other issues at home, or your family dynamic doesn't allow to get a student to in-person. Another way that we can help is if students were falling behind from last year, we will make every effort to not only continue on their current path, but get those credits made up. So students will have ample opportunity and time to make up any work that they've lacked on. So if there was a loss of learning last year, or you felt like your student could use a little remediation, we'll work with that student, the counselors, and the district to ensure that your students get what they need. Next slide, please. So what's different about us? First of all, it's the flexibility. The idea behind a virtual program is that it should be flexible, and your students and your family should feel comfortable in that program, allowing you to learn on your own schedule within a certain time frame. So you can access and complete any of our lectures, assignments, readings, homework, or any other materials at any time. Asynchronous simply means that you don't have to log in at certain times for certain things. However, you will be held accountable for pace and progress at certain cases. So if your student is enrolled in a certain class, they may get on and work for 3 or 4 hours on a Monday, and maybe on Tuesday they're helping their family at a grocery store that your family owns, or maybe Tuesday they're babysitting a sibling. This program allows for whatever flexibility your family needs. And that is the most important part of a virtual program that supports your student. Our solutions are very individualized. So each student is handled very individually. Coaches, local advocates, teachers, again, will all know their students, and the students will know them. And we'll work individually with those students as opposed to the general class setting. So if your student needs help in a certain area, even their class schedule is an individual schedule. Okay, so this isn't a mass dump everybody into a system. Your student will feel very individualized. They are not a number, and they will be highly recognized and supported. Again, I mentioned all those 360 supports, but you'll see them here again: coaches, advocates, tutoring, tech support, and then of course the right curriculum. And I've already mentioned all the accreditation. At the end of this PowerPoint, or a little bit further in, there's lots of information around our accreditation. We're not going to read through all of that tonight, but I did want to make that available to you to build your confidence around the quality and the equality of the education that your students will be getting through this program. Okay, next couple slides I'm going to have you go through pretty quickly, Leanne. First one, please. Again, I mentioned Cognia. This is one of our accreditations. So this is formerly known as Advanced Ed. You can go back and read through this. We will make this available to families. Next slide. Quality Matters is a very, very important one of our accreditations here. This tool is updated annually and is one of the most highly regarded accreditations we can get. In 2020, we redid, our accreditation here and received very, very, very high marks in our virtual environment. So we are a virtual school. That's what we do. And we are highly regarded by these accreditation entities. Next slide, please. I mentioned NCAA. This may or may not apply to many of your students, but if you do have student athletes, having an NCAA certification, one, is not only hard to get, but two, is critical to their both middle school and high school careers. So again, NCAA has supported what we do, and we just need to know if you have a student athlete, and we work directly with the NCAA on that. Next slide. So here comes the good stuff. What should you know and what should you expect? What does a typical day or a typical week look like? I mentioned the word asynchronous. That's one of those lovely education words that as a typical parent myself, when I first learned it, I didn't know what asynchronous meant. The difference is synchronous means your student sits down at a certain time and is face-to-face live with a teacher or face-to-face in a classroom. Ours are asynchronous. That means it is a self-paced course, but we're going to set that pacing and give you benchmarks for your students to work for. So rather than having a 9 a.m. math class that your student would log into, they have the flexibility to log in and work when they want, but we do expect that they complete a certain number of assignments each week and each month, okay? Our classes are a little bit different too. Your student will not be taking 5, 6, 7 classes at a time. They actually will be enrolled in 2 classes at a time. One of those classes will be a core, and typically one will be an elective. Now, depending on your student schedule, that will flex a little bit, and depending on how quickly they pace. So the idea is that when the students transition back into school, if they can and when they can, that will be as seamless as possible. So for example, if your student is a 7th grader and they're pacing ahead, we want to make sure that they have the opportunity to come back as an 8th grader and take their 8th grade courses with their classmates. So again, it is a self-paced, very flexible program, but that progress and pace are an expected piece of this program. So your student's not going to be able to wait until the end of the semester to finish. We have to get them through at least a class a month. It also allows them to focus on what they're learning and have less spread, I like to call, across a number of classes. The next thing I want to mention, and while AP and IB, which is advanced placement in international baccalaureate classes, don't apply to middle school, this program is not designed to offer advanced and or honors curriculum. While middle school students will have access to some high school courses, and the district will let us know and let you know what courses will be available to your students, if you have a student that is on the AP or IB track, you're going to want to consider that. It's just not available in these programs in a way right now. As you know or may not know, Clover Park is asking that as you commit to a virtual environment, that you do your best to commit for the 2021-2022 school year. The reason for that is the way that the courses are paced, the type of supports that your students get, and the ability for the school to transition your student, if and when that time comes, back into a traditional environment seamlessly. Okay, so when we are working with the school district, we're working very hard and closely with the counselors and the students to make sure that while our schedule is going to look very, very different than what you're used to, your students will be successful, and we will create a pathway for them to transition back if that's what they choose next year. Okay, and I know many of you are going to have questions about that. I'm sure they're in the chat right now. I'm going to keep going and then we'll answer questions at the end. Next slide, please. So knowing all of that, if you are a family that's interested and have not yet signed up for the virtual option, the district website is printed on this slide. I'm sure you can also go on your school website, and there'll be a link to enroll. That link will be under the parent tab by this Friday. and you must opt in or out by September 10th to this program. Next slide, please. So I'd like to show you just a little bit of what you can expect to see. I know many of us learned and were exposed to lots of different systems last year, and sometimes some of the biggest challenge is that interface that your students were using. And you are not educators, many of you are not, and so this might not be something you're used to. I'd like to ease your mind a little bit that one of the most beneficial things about working with Graduation Alliance is that our student interface is very, very student and family friendly. It's very simple and very intuitive. And I'm just going to show you a couple screenshots of what your student will see and what you as a parent will see over their shoulder. At any time, again, you as parents have access to review anything your student's doing, as well as see any of the communication between our advocates, our coaches, our tutors. All of those things are tracked in the system, and you can drill down into any of your students' assignments, anything that you'd like to see. Next slide, please. So when your student logs in, this is very, very, very simple. They're going to see a couple of classes, typically 2, on what we call their dashboard or their login page. So you can see this is the dashboard view. It will tell you which class they're enrolled in, what their current grade in, if there's any past due assignments, who their teacher is, and what they've completed. Many of these things on here are also what we call hyperlinks. So if you hover over them or click on them, you'll be able to drill down into more detail. Obviously, this is a screenshot, so we can't do that. Along the left-hand side is a menu of options. So this is where you'll see your classes, your path, a direct link to help both from teachers and tech support. So again, you are not tech support. The district is not tech support. We are tech support. And then if your student needs extra support or study sessions, there's a link there to sign up with any of their classes. Again, multiple sessions offered throughout the week at multiple times so that you and your students can find a time that works best for your family. Okay, next slide. As I mentioned, if you hover over some of these things, so this is if you were to hover over the assignments completed, each one of those lessons in that course then pops up. And then when you're in the system, that lesson is also hyperlinked, and their student can log in and go directly to the assignment that they're working on or that they want to work on from this homepage. There's not a lot of navigating around trying to find where things are. Most things are very, very hyperlinked and easy to get to for your students. So even your middle school students should have no problem navigating this. I think it's important as parents for you to see that we try and make this as simple as possible for your students and of course for you. Again, I've been there. I have virtual students last year. It's tough and I work in this environment. We are simplifying this as much as we can. Next page, please. If you were to click onto one of those units, this is where you see the assignment, the activity, and again, recently graded assignments will be listed here. So your student will see everything they need to know in very quick snapshots. You'll notice up in the nearly to the right-hand corner there is the teacher's name. If you click on where it says, just a little to the left there, Leon, you click on where it says contact details, that's how you contact your teacher. Okay, so at any point, if your student needs help, they can reach out directly. There's a link there for a chat, and if the teacher's online, they'll chat back. Our goal and our company's requirement is that your student gets returned, gets a response within 24 hours. This is something we hold our teachers highly accountable for. As your students are working through their work, they'll also receive detailed feedback from their teachers. This is not just upload an assignment, get a grade back. Our teachers will be interacting. In some courses, there will be opportunities for group interaction and discussions and different things. So your students are going to get some engagement from all of these pieces. So while you're in a virtual environment, there will be an opportunity to continue to engage your students in a healthy environment and one that allows them to work with their peers as well. Next page is probably more, next slide, please. The next slide is probably a little bit more of interest to you. As you notice, there's 2 classes here. This is a very quick and visual snapshot of your student's progress. So along the bottom, it'll show you which course your student worked in and what assignments they completed on which day. So as a parent, if you log in, you notice the student didn't work on Friday. They didn't work Thursday, Friday, Saturday, but this student has a very consistent work habit. They're completing work in both classes, and you can get a quick visual of that as a parent. If you want to, along the top bars of these, you'll be able to scroll into each of these assignments again. You'll see their progress in the course. the target end date for the course. So we set a target end date that your student should be working towards to keep them on path to graduate or finish this school year. Okay, so again, just wanted to give you a quick snapshot of what things look like. I'm a visual person. Along that right-hand side is, again, another menu for you to reach anything you need. So the status of your student, the staff that's assigned to your student. So at any time you can see their coach, their advocate, and their teacher, again, by clicking on that button. Different links the users might get. Meetup information, where our local advocates are going to be hosting both virtual and in-person opportunities for your students to work with us each week. And so while you may not be comfortable or able to go to your traditional schools in person, we will have offsite meetups periodically for students to come. And you'll want to think of those as a study session, but there's so much more to those. Our local advocates host those, and there's a number of things. I'm going to let Lisa talk about it for a second when I get through these slides about the role an advocate will play for your middle schoolers. And then I'm going to let Jesus talk a little bit more about what the coach will do. Remember, all of that is on top of our teachers' teaching courses, okay? And then next slide. I think, Kevin, you wanted to add a few details before we let Lisa and Jesus just give a quick description of what the students should expect from their advocates and their coaches.
Sure, this is a couple additional considerations. Students will have full access to our activities and athletics at their neighborhood school. So you will still have access to Skyward. You'll be in our system, so information will be given to you on that. Students will also have full access to our social, emotional, mental health services if needed at their neighborhood school. There is a new law that now we have to have proof of immunization for all students, not only in person, but virtual. So please make sure your immunization shots, not your COVID vaccination, your immunization shots are updated. And then just a reminder too, we should have the link up on the under the parent tab on our district website by Friday, where you can, if you want to consider this option, fill out the application, and then it will go through our system that will eventually go to Grad Alliance, and then you'll be communicated with about the application within a few days. One of the things that we do is we make sure that we look at your student's schedule. The Graduation Alliance needs to have that. And then if there are any other special considerations, like an IEP 504 or EL services, we have to assess those and be able to transfer that information correctly.
So if you don't mind, Kevin, I'd like to have first Lisa Hathaway tell us a little bit about the role of a local advocate and how they help a student be successful in a virtual environment.
Thanks, Lisa.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me this evening. Again, my name is Lisa. I'm excited to talk to you a little bit about the local advocate role. So as Beth already mentioned, our local advocates are indeed local. They are in your communities and are available to speak with and meet with your students on a regular and consistent basis. So it's the extra added wraparound support that local advocates can provide. And we hold what we call meetups. Meetups are a time for us to be able to come together and with our students on a regular and consistent basis. And so at that point in time, when we meet with our students, and these will be scheduled times that students and families can be aware of, we provide consistency. So each week you will know when our meetups are being held. So at this point in time, we're holding virtual meetups. And so we use a similar format where, as we're utilizing tonight, where we can come together as a group and connect. It's very much like a study hall environment. But in addition to that, it provides students with the ability to connect with one another. And so it's very much a community building opportunity for students to come together and collaborate and be able to get that extra added support. So not only will we have these virtual meetings, but we're also planning to have a community event. And so each month we're looking to have a local in-person community event where students and families can come together, connect with one another, and build that, the sense of community and support with one another. So going back to the local advocate support, as I mentioned, we have our virtual meetups. And in addition to that, your students will be hearing from your local advocate on a regular and consistent basis. So they'll be reaching out individually to the students to check in with them, see how they're doing, assessing for any kind of needs, any barriers, challenges, anything that's preventing your student from being successful in a virtual environment. We want to know how they're doing, and if they are coming across challenges, we're there to help support them find solutions. So whether that be time management skills, looking for opportunities to help them with scheduling. We talk about motivation, how to encourage our students to be successful. And we've been doing this for a long time now, and we have some really wonderful veteran local advocates who are currently working in the Clover Park area, who are really well versed and have this experience and are currently working with students in this type of a program. So they're just wonderful supports. We look for not only local supports, national supports. We connect the school district to find those resources that are available. And so we're constantly looking for ways and solutions to help your student find success. So again, those virtual meetups where we'll provide support, one-on-one check-ins with your student. And of course, we want to loop you in as the parental parent guardian support. So we'll also be looping in our parental support, connecting with our parent guardians, and making sure that everyone is well supported, on the same page, and just aware of the different services that we can provide on a regular and consistent basis. So really excited about this opportunity. Thank you so much for having me this evening.
Thanks for joining tonight, Lisa. Jesus, would you mind just giving a quick overview of the difference of what an academic coach may do differently and how that supports? Because I know obviously all of these different supports can be confusing. What you should know is it won't be confusing for your student. Your student will tend to find the one person they connect with most. And as long as they get to that one person, we can be there to support them. This isn't a situation where you have to think about, who do I call, who do I talk to? Get to somebody and we'll make sure that we get taken care of.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Jesus. I'm one of the academic coaches here at Graduation Alliance. And of course, like Beth is mentioning, there is going to be plenty of support that your kid is going to have, right? As an academic coach, we're going to be making sure that your student is pacing along with assignments that they need to be turning in every week, right? Beth mentioned that we are a 24/7 it's asynchronous program, right? Which means that your student can log in on a Monday and complete. Let's say we always have those overachiever students that perhaps decide to do half of a class on one day, right? And then they're like, oh, I don't want to work for the rest of the week because I have other responsibilities. Totally okay as long as the student is keeping track of the pacing, which means that every single Monday that the student is taking a class, they're gonna have assignments that need to be turned in, right? And as an academic coach, my role is to make sure that that student keeps track of those assignments and it's not falling behind, right? Because it is easy to just do other activities that it's not school and then just completely forget about it, right? And we're here to support the student to always make sure that we keep the parent on the loop. If we see that there's something wrong with the student, then we make sure that we bring the parent at all times, as well as making sure that we always are assigning the right classes that they need in order to, at the end, when they finish the program, they go back to either their homeschool or they decide to stay with Graduation Alliance, and that's totally up to you, right? And again, the differences between the local advocate is that we work a lot closer with the student in regards to like the academic side, meaning like we provide the classes, we make sure that the student is on track. And if the student, she mentioned, they might find a way, but they might have that person that they're always gonna go to, right? If they decide to go with the academic coach, perfect. We always make sure that we connect the student as well with the local advocate, so they're aware of what's going on with the student, right? So we kind of work collaboratively, so that way everybody is on the same page at all time, and your kid is well taken care of with either academics, health, anything in general.
Yeah, so as you guys can see, obviously, this is a very small part of our team, but a strong representation of the fact that we're already fully invested in your students. I'm not sure, Kevin, how you want to handle questions. I see a couple. I see that Tina had a question that I could answer. Are you ready to move to some Q&A, Kevin, or did you have anything you wanted to add?
I think for the families, that's probably the most important part of this presentation.
Right, that's what I figured, absolutely.
So we have Tracy and Jesus that will kind of ask the questions, and she'll go scroll through this and we'll answer them. So Jesus is going to do any Spanish questions, and Tracy would do the English.
Okay.
Okay, the first question we have is, I understand that we have to stick with it for a year, but what if it isn't working at all for their student?
Yeah, so Kevin, I actually think this is best for you to answer as far as what your district policies are.
Yeah, our goal is we want the student to commit to 1 year, but for the first, like in any school year, the first 10 days, we're allowing the student to try it out. And if things don't work out, there's that period where they can transfer back. So that's going to be really important, the first 10 days of the school. Now, if things struggle throughout the semester as we go along, it's important that we continue to find solutions. Use the coaches, use the advocates. And then once the semester is over, we could analyze the student's progress at that time. One of the situations that you can see is that when we're given a pacing at 2 classes apiece, bringing a student back and putting them back on track is very difficult. And so that's one of the reasons why we wanted the student to commit to a full year. And the student will have access to clubs and activities, so they won't be excluded from any school events outside of the actual 6-period day.
That's a good lead into Tina's question, Tracy, if you want to read that.
Great.
You see it under the Q&A button.
And right next to the participants, the Q&A button. There's two kind of chat buttons.
I can read it while you're looking.
Okay.
So Tina asked, with only one core and elective subject at a time, will the syllabus be complete? And how about other subjects they're supposed to take? So let me clarify, Tina, that's a great question. I want to make sure everybody's really clear. While they're only going to be enrolled and working in 2 classes at a time, though each of those classes are paced to be completed in about 3 to 4 weeks, as opposed to having 6 classes that are supposed to be completed, or 6, 5, 7, depending on your child's schedule, are supposed to be completed in a semester. And so by the end of the semester, they will have completed all of their classes. But what we know and what the data suggests is that students that work in a virtual environment actually have more in-depth learning, more retention, and better engagement when they're only managing 2 classes at a time. So they'll complete those 2 classes around 3 to 4 weeks each, and then we'll add another one to their dashboard. So as soon as they complete one class, they'll final out of that class and another one will be added. They will be working at all times in 2 classes. There will be points that maybe there are 2 electives at the same time, because the other thing is, to Jesus's point and everybody else's, you may have a student that is very academically motivated and has a lot of time and can get on and do a lot of work in one day. So you may see that. It's something you should expect. But we've paced it so that if a student completes 3 to 4 assignments a day in a class, the class will be completed in 3 to 4 weeks, and then we'll add another one in. So they'll get all of their classes that they're registered for, just in a little different window. Instead of 6 at a time, it's 2 at a time for shorter periods. I hope that answers the question. If you want to ask anything additional, please do, because I know this is a funky little environment. And while you're responding, can you see the next one now,
Yes.
Tracy? Okay, go ahead.
All right. Next question is just to clarify, because the kids have the flexibility to come on or work when possible, is the class just a recording? Will they have actual conversation interactions with a human teacher? And if students have full access to activities and athletics at their neighborhood school, they want to know if they have transportation back home or if the parents will need to provide that as well to and from their activities at school.
So I think I'll take the first one, and then transportation activities, I'll turn back to Kevin. So this is an asynchronous environment. Much of the sessions are recorded. The activities are all different types of activities, multimodality. So there'll be some videos, there'll be some reading, there'll be some things. However, with that being said, the students will have access to sign up for times to speak with their teacher directly. There will be group interactions. If they're working during the day and their teacher is teaching at that time, they can reach their teacher. So they will have the ability to work with their teacher and speak with their teacher, and they will interact. Again, we hold our teachers highly accountable on their engagement and interaction with students. It's just not a synchronous session where they have to log in at 9 a.m., at 10 a.m. The idea behind virtual learning and the flexibility is the most important part. So by having an asynchronous program with availability to work with your teachers and tutors and coaches when needed, gives you the best of every world as best we can. It allows your family then to decide when it's best for you to work. So the answer is yes, they will have conversations and interaction with their teachers, but yes, many of the sessions are recorded. Now I want to preface this. Our teachers record their own stuff. So for example, if you've used another system where a student gets on, watches a video, and let's say they go out to YouTube and watch that, many of those things you'll see, but it's our teachers in their kitchen doing a science experiment. I mean, that's a little bit remedial, but it's our teachers creating their own materials. We're not stealing that from other places. They are learning from their teacher. They're seeing their teacher's face. They're hearing their teacher's voice. The work is graded by the teachers and the coaches. Some of it's auto-graded. The system will auto-grade so that the teachers are actually available to meet with students, speak with students, interact with students, and give good feedback to different types of like written work, things like that. So hopefully that answers that. Yes, they will interact with their teachers. No, it won't be live unless they want it, unless they schedule a live session. And they will have abilities to schedule, like in particular, I'll talk about math. Oftentimes students need extra support in math. We have a number of study sessions and live sessions that students can sign up for to get those supports. So hopefully this gives you all the flexibility and the best of every world in an environment that also gives them a good education.
So I think, Tracy, we have some in the chat box.
Yes.
You also, Kevin, do you want to answer about transportation?
Kevin, they were asking about, the parent was asking about transportation for school activities. They understand that they would have to get their student to the school for the activities. They're wondering if they could ride an activity bus home or if the parent is responsible to get the student home.
So right now we're asking the parent to find a ride to school. We do have bus passes, but I'm not sure if you're comfortable with doing that. The activity bus would be available for the student to take home. And usually we would, we would accommodate, that would be accommodated, no problem. It would just be getting the student there.
Okay, great, thank you. We have a question in the chat. Let's see, let me scroll up here a little bit. There's a question about, I believe earlier, about how we support, sorry here.
I can see it here, Tracy. It's hard to see.
Thank you.
It says, what type of support do you offer for students with autism?
Thank you.
So I'm going to answer the first part, and then I think Kevin should address that. Graduation Alliance, if a student has an IEP, 504, or any other special needs, the district and the parents should assess together if this is the right program for them. We can provide full accommodations, and then services are provided by the district. And so, Kevin, do you want to speak a little bit to how those services can be accessed?
Sure. So it's all through the IEP team. If the student has an IEP or 504, they'll meet, they'll review the needs of the student and then make recommendations. So like we said, if there's basic classroom accommodations, Grad Alliance will make that. But if there are any in-service accommodations like a speech therapist or a physical therapist, the school will have to plan to offer those services. So the student would have to probably come back to school to get those services. Because we don't have the itinerants that we have, the staffing, they will not be able to do home visits in that situation. So it is a case by case. And so that's why we would have to do a clear analysis of the need to make it happen.
Thank you. Next question is, they were asking about tech support. Not sure if it was already mentioned, but will tech be provided for the students? And then
So
they mentioned.
That's half Beth, half me. So
Yeah.
Beth, we are going to use Graduation Alliance computers. And Beth, can you review the computer format?
Yep. So every student will be issued a 4G enabled Chromebook. And what that means is it's a Chromebook with a hotspot that works anywhere a cell phone works. Those will be provided by us and distributed by our team to your students. If a student needs tech support or any help with that computer, there's a link and a phone number that they can reach us. You do not call the district. We are tech support. We are help if they can't log in, if the computer's doing something funny. I'm sure there will be an FAQ that we put together too, because obviously if a student couldn't get into their computer, they can't see the phone number to call. So we'll provide, the district should be able to provide somewhere, probably on the website or through a packet of information, the tech support number for Graduation Alliance. So we will provide technology to your student that is between the family and us. And then when your student is done with the program, we collect that technology back from you. Okay.
Sorry,
And
can I just add something to that?
Yes.
Yes.
I just want to make sure that you guys are aware that the hotspot that's provided with the computer only works specifically with that computer. So if the student's trying to connect the hotspot to a different device, it won't work. So it's only for the computer.
Oh, thanks for clarifying that too.
Yeah,
Jesus.
thank you. And then the other question, if I already have a district computer, do I have to turn that in? At this point, no. However, if there is a transition, when you transition from 8th to 9th, at the end of the year, we usually have our 8th graders turn in the computers and we give them new computers in the 9th grade. So if we did that transition, it would be at the end of the year.
Thank you. And our next question is, with it being fully virtual, will kids be able to interact with other students?
So I think
That's
Kevin
both of
already
you.
mentioned that kids have full access to all school activities and opportunities to do sports, band, and different activities there. So yes, they can interact that way. Outside of that, in the virtual environment, there are oftentimes group chats, group interactions. Some classes, I believe, have some group projects. So in that way, from the virtual side of things, there will be interaction with other students, yes. Obviously, we closely monitor that, and you should know, and there are a number of filters put on the computer so that we can control how students are interacting in a positive and healthy way. And you should feel safe knowing that we're monitoring that technology. One thing that might be helpful to know is that we've been doing virtual learning in a number of environments for a very long time. And we work with all different populations of students. So we take that security of your student very seriously, and we have to adhere to very serious data privacy laws and laws like that that are part of not only the state requirements, but national requirements for your students. So we take that very, very, very seriously. So anything negative in that aspect wouldn't happen, but from a positive standpoint, yes, they will have interaction, opportunity for interaction.
Great.
I believe Lisa was going to be offering some community events once a month as well. That would be a chance to interact with other students.
Okay, and our next question is, how do you work with students currently using an IEP program?
Yep, and I think we mentioned this, Kevin addressed it earlier, right? So we will know that if a student has an identified IEP, our system provides accommodations, and for any services, the district will work with you on those services.
Okay, and then back to the Q&A. We have can a live session be scheduled for a weekly thing for that time with a teacher? They would asking about a weekly.
So are you asking, could you, can you sign up for an every week session with your teacher one-on-one?
I believe that's what they're asking.
Yeah, I think it's like every 10 o'clock every week, every day, or every week. I want to have a 10 o'clock meeting, maybe, I think.
Jesus, do you, I don't know. I've never been asked that.
Yes, but obviously that has to be scheduled with the teacher and making sure that the student and the teacher have the same available spot in order to meet. So that's something that the student would also have to communicate with me, so that way I can arrange the meeting.
Yeah,
So
that's good
as a
time.
parent,
That's good time management.
Yeah. So as a parent, if that's something you feel is important for your student for accountability and structure, which I get, then you'll want to communicate that both with your student and with our coaches, and our coaches can help facilitate that. Now, understand that the entire lesson probably wouldn't be taught in that session, so they wouldn't be doing a synchronous lesson at that time, but they would be getting the support they need, and I'm sure they would work through any additional supports that they need during that time. Hope that answered the question correctly. It looks like I think we were down the right path there.
I believe we got a confirmation we were on the right path.
Good. Great, thank you.
All right.
And any other questions from the group? Oh, they asked it, they said it was more like accountability.
So if you are looking for a structure and accountability from your student, I assure you our program has a number of supports built in for that. The coach is the piece of our program that is the accountability piece. They are responsible for supporting that student in pace and progress, which means if a student is not meeting expectations, we will put measures in place to start encouraging them to do so. Obviously, we want to start from a very positive place and understand why. And maybe what's getting in their way, and then find a solution that works best for your student.
Oh, I know the answer to the next question. Does my kid have a chance to cover 6th and 7th grade in 1 year?
Kevin.
And that, because our goal is to pace the students, at this point, the program does not accommodate that.
Sorry.
What we do is we want to give them a year's worth of core classes, but we know that students will accelerate. What we'll do the acceleration in is the electives, the enrichment classes that they'll be able to take, like art or things like that. The goal is that we keep them on pace so that next year you have the choice to bring them back at grade level. And that's kind of where we're at with the program. And so our goal is to get the kids through this year like they would normally get through a normal year in person.
Yeah, and I think, we work with a number of organizations nationally. One of the things about that this is great, and that, Clover Park has done a really good job of providing a very extensive resource to you, obviously at no charge because it's education for your student. But part of that process is that we want to give, it's almost the greater good. We want to give everybody the opportunity to be successful and to make a choice for next year when next year comes.
Well, we have a few more minutes, so if if something comes up in the last, please let us know. We'll just hang tight.
We have a little more time if there are any more questions from the families out there.
There's
Yeah, there's one just came in. The virtual program, will the student receive the same credit as a student who's attending regular school and be able to advance into their next grade?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yep.
The course names are even the same. So we have done a full crosswalk with the district, what we call a curriculum crosswalk, and we've mapped to the district's courses. And so, yes, it's the exact same credit that the student is as if they're attending regular school. So their transcripts will reflect the same thing. Good question. Will this program be the same as the K-12 and Washington Connections Academy? No, we are not K-12 and we are not Washington Connections Academy. Our curriculum is proprietary. We write it. Again, for those of you, I know accreditation is a little bit more of a education speak than a lot of people dive into, but with those accreditations and everything, the quality of education I believe that your students are getting is very good. And then that's not to say that Connections and K-12 are not, but no, it is not the same program.
And my question is, are you planning on the students being back in person next year?
That is our hope. That is
We
our
hope
hope
so.
that we mitigate COVID, that we mitigate all these restrictions, and that everyone is back to full in-person learning.
We're back this
However,
year.
Yeah, we are. Without any COVID restrictions or fear of kids getting sick. And that's our whole thing. And so that's why we are offering this graduation alliance option for this year. Do we continue on for next year? That's currently our plan, but what may change next year? It possibly could. But for this year, we want to make sure that our kids are served and that your needs are served in terms of the issues of COVID and relating to exposing our kids to that.
Yeah, I think what's really great, and to Clover Park's credit, is that there are a number of districts that are not even offering a virtual option for kids, and that's their choice as a district. I think what this speaks volumes to the fact that Clover Park is working really hard to accommodate families' needs and desires. It's also, we as an organization have made some operational changes so that we can effectively get students back into the building in line with their class if that's what they want. I mentioned earlier, the only thing certain about the year is the uncertainty that it brings. And we've seen, different news come out in the last couple of weeks. We're going to work really hard to make sure that your student can have a seamless transition when that works for your family.
All right, we have another question. What grades are this program offered to?
This grade is a 6 through 12 program. So next week, we'll have on the 18th at 6 p.m., we'll have our high school presentation, but we do want to invite you to come back again because maybe over the week you have further questions, and Beth and her team will be back next week, and we can answer those if you as you look at the online learning for your student.
They're asking if there are any advanced classes in math or any advanced classes, period.
Yes, so not honors or AP, but for example, there are advanced math courses available. Yes.
And then we got a nice little thank you for taking the time to put all this together, which is very sweet. Oh, another thank you. Great information.
It is food for thought. And that's, to Kevin's point, if you think on it for the next week and you want to come back and ask additional questions, I encourage you all to go out and, do your own research on Graduation Alliance, read about us. We work very closely with OSPI and the State Department of Education in Washington. You are welcome to, and you should do your homework on us. And I hope you do, because I think you'll be very pleased.
We got a question. Where can we pick up computers?
Lisa, you want to help?
Oh, at this point in time, once students are completing the form necessary, they are mailed directly to your homes.
So there will be a form on our district website that will need to be completed. That form will be under the parent tab beginning on Friday. It'll show up there that you'll need to complete that form in order to register for this, if that's what you choose is best for your family. We have another question in the Q&A. If my child tries the program out for 6 months and it doesn't work out, can she return back to her regular IB program? I'd like clarify what grade your child is in. IB is difficult.
So the IB program actually starts in the 11th and 12th grade, but there's pre-IB information, pre-IB courses. So that's what I'm thinking you're alluding to, especially we call it the middle years IB program, middle years program. This will be a case-by-case situation, because we'll have to consult with academic learning, where you're at with the course, because you could be coming back in the middle of a honors math class, a middle of a IB English class, and there may be a huge disconnect in content area, and that is where a consultation will have to be. That's why we could look at that semester break,
Possibly,
but it is very difficult to make that transition back, and that's why I really like the services of the coaching, the help, and still trying to keep the student engaged in school activities. So having that, working through that is going to be very important. And there might be a transition. It may take a few weeks to transition to this habit and getting back into this kind of virtual learning. So patience too, we'll ask.
So I think the answer would be on a case
by case maybe.
basis.
Yeah.
But we are asking for a year-long commitment, and you have until, when you try it out, the first 10 days until September 10th to make that decision. Next question, how many kids will be in 6th grade?
TBD, we'll know by the 10th.
It's all based on the registration.
Yep.
But there's unlimited. We don't have a cap. Parents, you're asking some great questions.
Really are.
Or maybe the kids, I don't know. So with that, hey, I just want to thank everyone for your time today. I want to thank Beth and the Graduation Alliance team, our team here. And our goal is to find the best environment for your student. Our goal is that your students develop a passion for learning, a passion for the future, and they leave college and career ready when they leave the Clover Park School District. So we're looking forward to starting this year. And again, we will have the form up on Friday. We will have another presentation on next Tuesday. So please, if you'd like to join again, please come and with other questions. So with that, I think I'm going to close our session.